Hello, it's Duncan. I'm taking a break from my normal content this week because JetBrains have just released an early access preview of their AI assistant, and I wanted to be the first to make a video on it. As luck would have it, I wanted to show a diagram of the package structure of the Gilded Rose codebase, and I couldn't find anything in the menus. So I thought I'd see if AI Assistant could help. What I want to create is a diagram showing the relationship between the packages in our source code. So let's go right ahead and ask for it. Create a diagram showing the relationship between the packages in the source code. Well, ChatGPT is nothing if not polite. It tells me it can't help. It tells me that IntelliJ can, but to be honest with you, the IntelliJ diagrams aren't what I want. They show classes, not packages. But maybe the AI assistant can help us write a program to do what we want. So let's try write a Kotlin program to show the relationship between packages in source code. Okay, one more putting me off, but I'm not discouraged. So far, this is quite like asking a computer programmer to do something for you. Let's try another way. Write some Kotlin code to scan source code and analyze the relationships between packages. Aha, we had some code. And so let's look at this. It says you need to build a static source code analysis tool. Well, that's true. That is what I'm trying to do. I have an empty file ready here, so we can copy this over into there. And it doesn't actually mention it, but we have to change this source root. That's path to my source code. Let's go and change that in here. So that will be /source main. Let's try running that. What have we got? Well, it's true to its word. It has found all the import statements in every file. Not really what we're after, though. Let's ask it whether it can find the relationship between the packages. Can you show the relationship between the packages? One of the problems with the tool at the moment is that we have to kind of manually scroll this as it comes dripping its way out of ChatGPT. Here is the answer, and it's just gone back to as a text-based assistant. That's annoying. Let's say, can you change the source code to show the relationship between the packages? And again, we'll manually scroll ourselves. Not very helpful. Let's just say change the source code to show the relationship between the packages. Ah, well. Okay, at this point I'm a bit frustrated, and let me show you why. The tool window helpfully shows other chats, and if we look at last night, this is the transcript of a chat. I started by saying write some Kotlin code to scan source code and analyze the relationship between packages, and the AI assistant produced this, which if we were to put it into here, doesn't quite compile because it doesn't include IO exception, but we can fix that. And it points to the wrong place, so this wants to be /source main. Note that we're using an entirely different way of walking the file tree. I think a worse way of walking the file tree. But in here, we're actually grouping things together by package. So if I run this, you can see I get each package and what it imports. It imports dev, Java, and so on. It's pretty frustrating when asking the same question. Sometimes gives you an answer that's really good, and sometimes gives you an answer that's really bad. In fact, I'm going to take the exact thing I typed here, create a new chat, and we'll try that again. Here we're creating a package scanner. Gets KT. Well, that seems to be a different representation of the first one we got, but this one finds the package names and the imports, but doesn't make any attempt to coalesce them as this one did. Okay, I think I'm going to delete that chat. So let's try write some Kotlin code to scan source code and analyze the relationship between packages. Okay, at this point I've given up trying to get to the state that I was last night, but I have a cunning plan, and that's, I think, to give it the code that it first gave me. So let's go back to all chats. Let's look at the one from last night. And this was a good start, I think. We use this files, walk tree, and regular expressions. And most importantly, it creates a single entity for each package. So let's take that. Scroll doesn't work. So we'll take that, copy it into a new chat. And we'll say, here is some Kotlin code to analyze the relationship between packages in source code. Now I don't know how not to submit that. Maybe Shift Enter. Oh, good. So I can now paste. Oh, and it's put in backticks. I think that's probably a good idea. So now I can say, change the root to /source main. Let's see how that does. So we seem now to be on the journey that I was last night. Let's go back to our package analyzer and copy all this in. It's a bit irritating. I have to scroll to the top to find the button, but insert snippet at caret. It's good. Now we will import that IO exception and try running that, see whether we're in the right path. Okay, that's good. It's going to be a pain to keep on importing IO exceptions. So let's say make it import IO exception. Okay, so now we can select all here, go back up to the top of this one, copy that into there, and run that. Okay, good. Now though, this only shows we import com rather than com something, org, and so on. So this isn't showing enough of the import. So let's say that only shows the top level package. I need it to show the lowest levels. And here it's actually telling us what it's going to do. When you find an import, you don't split on the first dot, meaning you don't take the top level package, but you take the full import statement. Well, that seems plausible. So let's take that, copy that into there, and run. Okay, that's really quite plausible now. So let's have a look. So our pricing imports ID item. Oh, well, that's now showing classes because it's showing the last thing after the dot. Can we say that is showing class names? I don't want those. See what we get. excluding the class name. So to do this, you need to adjust the way you extract the imported package split. Well, that seems again plausible. So let's take that, put that into there. Oh, it wasn't finished yet. Wait for it to finish, go back up to the top. Select all that, put that into there, and now run again. That's really quite plausible. We now have that com Gilded Rose pricing imports com Gilded Rose domain and foundation, and some bits of HTTP client. That surprises me a bit, but I suppose the point of this is that we find these things out. Let's just have a look up here, see how we're doing. This here is a class. Evidently, we were importing something from within that class, so the logic still isn't quite right. We have the same problem here and here, but we're certainly getting closer. How about producing a diagram of that? Let's ask it to create a diagram of the packages. So this suggests we use GraphViz with the same code. And then we have a file output.prinwriter. So let's try that. We'll go back up to the top of this, find the pasty button and run that. Now nothing happened. I wonder why. Of course, it's right into a file. We then need to actually visualize that file. I think it did tell us how to do that. So that's dot, type PNG, take the output dot it's just created, and output a PNG file. So let's take that, copy it, open a terminal, paste, let's see what we get. And now we have an output.png, and my goodness, it looks sort of plausible. Let's zoom in on that. Now this isn't perfect, but I think you can see that our HTTP package doesn't depend on any of our other top level packages. Our updating package depends on the domain package. Rendering depends on format and persistence. Well, that really isn't bad. We still have issues with things like this box here, where it thinks response errors is a package. But to a first approximation, this is pretty good. And certainly I wouldn't have known how to write a GraphViz file for this sort of thing. The two-stage process of writing a dot file and then invoking GraphViz to render it is a bit awkward. Let's see whether it can do something for us in that area. Can the Kotlin code invoke GraphViz to render? Oh, that's promising. And here we have the runtime exec. And back to the top. Do that, run that. That apparently has worked. And here's our output. Now I think maybe I'm only interested in my own packages. So let's say filter that to only show com.gildedrose packages. You can add a check in your import to skip non-matching ones. Well, that sounds reasonable. Scroll to the end. Oh, no, not quite. Yes, that'll do. And back here, and now say, do that, and run. And now look at our output, and there we are. Shut that. Look at that. One last thing, I'd like to talk about higher level and lower level packages, and this is lefty and righty packages, so I wonder whether we can move it to the root node is at the top. Let's ask, move the root node to the top of the diagram. It's a bit of a shame we can't actually run the code from here. I can see it's a bit dangerous, but it is effectively what we're doing. Are we done with this? Not quite. Now we are. Select everything over there, go over here. Really could do with that button at the bottom as well as the top. Put that over there and run it. And look at our output. Oh, there we are, lovely. What can we learn from this diagram? Well, these two boxes in the middle, the items and the stock list loading error, are an artifact. We can ignore them. What's nice is that we had this domain package here and this foundation package here, both of which only have incoming connections at the bottom of our diagram. So all the other packages depend on those things in different combinations. And we're not seeing any crosstalk between the packages at this level. So our HTTP package doesn't depend on pricing, pricing doesn't depend on persistence, and so on. And I think this is a sign of a good layered design. One thing that does concern me is this arrow here. So our rendering package apparently depends on our root package. I'm not going to look into that right now, but that's suspicious to me. I think the rendering package should depend on the domain perhaps, or maybe the foundation, but I don't think it should depend on whatever's in the root package, which should really just be our application, the bit that wires everything together. Having used the AI assistant to look at the quality of our code, let's have a look at the quality of its code. Well, it's using a mutable map. That's a bit old-fashioned, and I think we've seen there are shorter ways of walking a file tree than this pre-visit directory, visit file failed, and so on. I do like the use of regular expressions, and I like the fact that it has a regular expression here with a group here that is then pulled out here. When I tried this from scratch on my own, that was the sort of approach I took. But it is now, though, a bit of a hodgepodge of special cases and things at odd sort of levels. I think this package pattern, for example, belongs up here rather than in here, and so on. We don't have separate functions. We just have comments about what's going on, and we seem to be using a deprecated API here. On the whole, this isn't very human-readable code. One other thing we can do is to use the AI actions to suggest refactoring. And you can see that that uses a prompt of refactor the following code. But looking at it, that seems to have expanded to one level. Let's try at the top level, say AI actions suggest refactoring. That selected the whole file. So we now have a main with walk tree, generate drop file, create image output, and so on. Well, that's not a major change, but it is at least using functions instead of comments. So let's take that and run it. Well, it hasn't been totally successful, but we can import by hand, run that. And we still had the same output. That's good. Now, one thing we don't have is tests. I probably wouldn't have written unit tests for this myself, but I wonder whether we can ask the AI assistant to. Let's go over here. Is that an option? No. But I could take all of this and say, write some tests for this code. And see what we get. Well, that test isn't much, but I suppose it's testing the regular expressions. I'm not hugely impressed with that. I wonder about another rung of refactoring. Let's select all of this and say AI actions suggest refactoring. I'm not really sure what that did. It's difficult to see, but it does say this version of code makes uses extension functions and properties to shift certain responsibilities to relevant types. Does it look much better? Well, not to me, to be honest with you. This is refactoring to Kotlin, so if I was to have a go at it, I think I would have this walk tree not have a mutable map, but return a map, for example. But the problem is that as soon as I get involved in this refactoring, if I'm going to use the AI assistant to do more with it, I'm going to have to paste the code that I've just created over into the assistant so that it can see what I've done. It would maybe be nice if one of the AI actions was, there is this new chat using selection. So I suppose I can take my version and then start a new chat, but then I'll have lost the context of all of this that's gone before. This is a beta feature though, and I've got to say it's remarkably impressive. We have got a useful diagram, and I think it was a lot quicker than if I'd had to research how to do it by hand. And I'm not sure this is yet production-ready code, but it is a starting point, and in this case, the code really isn't the important thing, the output diagram is. I think my biggest problem, and this is not really about the AI assistant, but about large language models with randomness in the first place, is that you can take the same starting point and end up with one chat where it simply refuses to do something for you and another chat that's really useful. That randomness makes learning to ask questions really hard. But overall, will I continue to use the assistant? Well, I certainly will. I think its sweet spot is probably this sort of task, where it doesn't require access to all of our source code in order to do a good job for us. But no doubt somebody will be working out better ways of interacting with our entire code base. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this. If you have and you'd like to see more, then please subscribe to the channel. And I think you'll probably enjoy the book that I wrote in that prize called Java to Kotlin, a Refactoring Guidebook, details of which are in the show notes below. Thanks for watching.